So until now we saw about ovary, children, that is about the female reproductive part completely. Here we will learn more about the position of this ovules. So we are going to learn about placentation. So what is placentation? It is the arrangement of ovules on the placenta within the ovary. ഓവറിൻ്റെ ഉള്ളിൽ എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഓവ്യൂൾസ് അതിൻ്റെ പ്ലാസൻറ്റയിൽ അറേഞ്ച് ആയിട്ടുള്ളത്. സോ ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് കോൾഡ് ആസ് placentation. So arrangement of ovules on the placenta within the ovary is called as placentation. And this placentation, it is of many type. So they are of 5 type: marginal, axial, parietal, free central and basal. Okay, so marginal, axial, parietal, free central and basal. So these are the 5 types of placentation seen in the ovary, which is seen within the ovary. Now let us learn about each one in detail. So here the first one is marginal. So as the name says, margin, it develops from the margin, right? So here the placenta forms a ridge along the ventral suture. Okay, which is nothing but the junction of the 2 parts. So this is the ridge, right? So the placenta will form ridge along the ventral suture. So this is the ventral portion and this is the dorsal portion, right? So this is the dorsal suture, that is inner portion of the ovary is the dorsal suture, and the outer, the junction portion is the ventral suture. ഇങ്ങനെ നീളത്തിലുള്ളതാണ് ventral suture, right? So the placenta will form the rigid along. Rigid means it is nothing but it is the point where the 2 parts are combining. So this place. So this is called as the rigid. Okay, and this rigid, when it is formed in the ventral suture of the ovary, and the ovules are born on the rigid, forming 2 rows. Where are the ovules seen? They are formed on this rigid ventral suture at the. How are the ovules born? These ovules are born in the rigid, forming 2 rows. One single row അല്ലാണ്ട് 2 rows ആയിട്ടാണ് വരെ arrange ആയിട്ടുണ്ടാവുക. You can see this. These are all the ovules. The P's are the ovules, right? So this is the placenta. So this structure where, or the junction where the rigid is formed, is called as placenta, right? You can see it here. So there is an extension which connects to the placenta in both the rows, right? So this is about the marginal placentation. Now let us move on to the next placentation, which is the axial placentation. Okay, so here the placenta is axial and the ovules are attached to it in a multilocular ovary, right? So they are seen in the axis portion, that is the central portion. Placenta here, it is seen in the axis, and the ovules are attached into a multilocular ovary. So what is multilocular? Locules is nothing but it is the chambers inside the ovule, right? So they are present in the they are attached in the form of a multilocular ovary. It means that many ovary will be there, and they are attached to a. So they are attached in a multilocular ovary. Locular means it is chamber, multi means many. So inside the ovary they are seen as different chambers, and the ovules are attached to the each of the chamber. That is inner portion of the ovule. Inner portion of the ovary is the part where the. Now let us see about the axial placentation, children. Here the placenta is axial and the ovules are attached to it in a multilocular ovary. Okay, so here the ovary is multilocular. Locular means it is chamber, and multilocular means it has many chambers. So they are placed as many chambers, and here the placenta is axial. The placenta is seen in the axial portion, which is the central portion of the ovary, right? So here the placenta is axial, which means that it is in the central portion, and the ovules are attached to it in a multilocular ovary, right? So they are attached in a multilocular ovary. You can see in this picture, children, this is the placenta, this is the axis portion, and it is from this axis portion the ovules are attached. And how are they attached? They are found in a multiloculary fashion. Multiloculary means loculary is the chamber, multi means there will be many chambers in the inner portion, right? So you can see 3 of it, right? So example of these plants are China rose, tomato and lemon. So if you see them, you will find this multiloculary ovary structure. Okay, so ovary, it is seen as different locules, and each of this will have ovules inside them, and that too in the axis portion. So the placenta will be in the axial portion, right? This is about the axial placentation. Now coming to the next one, which is the parietal placentation. So here the ovules develop on the inner wall of the ovary or on peripheral part. You can see this. So this is the inner wall of the ovary, and this is the peripheral portion, which is also called as the peripheral portion, right? So periphery is nothing but it is the structure which is located near the surface, right? അപ്പോൾ ഈ ഒരു സർഫേസിൻ്റെ അടുത്തുള്ളതിനാണ് we are calling it as peripheral part. So ovules develop on the inner wall of the ovary or on peripheral part. So this is the inner wall or the peripheral portion, right? Outermost part of the structure is the periphery, right? So ഒരു സ്ട്രക്ചറിൻ്റെ ഔട്ടർ സർഫേസിനെയാണ് ഒരു സർഫേസിനെയാണ് outer surface we are calling it as periphery, right? So the ovules develop on the inner wall of the ovary or on peripheral part. And how are these ovaries? Ovary is one chambered, but it becomes two chambered due to formation of false septum. Okay, it will be one chambered only. ഒരു space മാത്രമേ ഉണ്ടാവുള്ളൂ, ഒരു empty space മാത്രമേ ഉണ്ടാവുള്ളൂ. But in some times what happens, two chambers are formed due to formation of false septum. False septum എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ septum is division. So when there is formation of false septum, it forms two chambered structure, or else it will have only one structure, one chambered structure. It will not have a proper visible division, but it will have a thin structure which will be dividing all this. Okay, and example of plants which has this parietal placentation is mustard and argemone are the examples of this parietal placentation. You can see it here, right? So on the surface of the ovary only, that is in the inner surface of the ovary only, we are able to find the formation of the ovules, right? So the placenta will be there in the inner surface. You can see this. This is all the placenta to which the ovules are attached. Okay, now let us move on to the next part, which is the free central. Here ovules are born on central axis and septa are absent. So in this part we saw that in the axial part they had separations, right? So it had separations, it has many locules. But in the case of this free central, here the ovules are born on central axis. So central axis ലായിരിക്കും എല്ലാ ovules ഉണ്ടാവുക, and the septa is absent. Septa means the separation will be absent. Okay, so this is how the central axis, central placentation will be. An example of plants which have this placentation is dianthus and prime rose. So these are the examples of flowers which has this free central placentation. Now coming to the last one, which is the basal placentation. So here it is basal, right? So basal part ennaanu placenta ഉണ്ടാവുക. So here placenta develops at the base of ovary and a single ovule is attached to it. Okay, so where does this placenta arise from? It arises from the base of the ovary. Ovary in the base lana ee placenta undavuva, and it will have only one single ovule attached to it. Only one ovule will be attached to it, right? Example is sunflower and marigold. You can see it here, the inferior ovary which they have shown. So this is the placenta, and a single ovule is attached to it, right? Okay, now I hope you understood about different types of placentation in the flower, right? So let us move on to the next part, children. So after the fertilization, what will happen? The ovule will develop into seed and the ovaries will mature into fruit. So once the sperm and the ovum fuses together, they will form the next part of the fertilized sexual reproduction, which is the formation of the seed and the fruit. Okay, so after fertilization, ovules will develop into seed and ovaries will mature into a fruit. Now let us learn about the development of the fruit and the seed, right? So first, if you take the case of fruit, it is a ripened ovary developed after fertilization. Fertilization കഴിഞ്ഞ ശേഷം the bulged ovary portion will develop into a ripened portion. Okay, and this is the characteristic feature of the flowering plants. Flowering plants in a characteristic feature ആണ് ഈ ripened ovary form ചെയ്യുന്നത്, right? A fruit formed without fertilization of ovary is called as parthenocarpic fruit. See, without fertilization means the male gamete called as the pollen, which contains the sperm and the ovum, will not fuse up together, but their ovary itself can give rise to fruit formation, and that type of fruits are called as parthenocarpic fruit, right? And example, we can say that banana is an example of this parthenocarpic fruit, right? Now coming to the general fruit, in fruits like mango and coconut and all, the fruit is called as drupe, right? So this drupe is they are one-seeded and develops from the monocarpellary superior ovaries. So mango and coconut fruit is called as drupe, and they are one-seeded and they develop from monocarpellary superior ovaries. I hope you remember about the superior ovaries and monocarpellary, right? So it will have only one carpel in them.